welcome to a new edition of the Go Club podcast. I'm your host, Edwin Delgado, and today this is the first English episode that we're gonna be having here on YouTube. And we have, we're gonna be talking about MLS Cup, and we're going to be talking about Copa America 2024. And to do that, Favian Renkel joins me. Fabian, thank you so much for coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. It's a true pleasure. I didn't know I was your first English episode. Si querías, puedo hablar en español también, pero either way, I'm very grateful to be on, and it's a pleasure of mine.
Likewise, I appreciate taking the time. So let's get started with the conversation with MLS Cup. You were there in Columbus this weekend on a really intense and final. Can you give me your biggest ticket takeaways from the game and the Columbus win over LAFC?
Yeah, honestly, I went in there thinking LAFC was just going to run havoc. I really thought it was going to be a 1-0 game. Chiellini was going to, maybe, do his antics to make sure that it stays 1-0 and then it's 2-0 by the 90th. And, it was kind of going that way. LAFC was weathering the storm for about 30 minutes. It looked like these guys were going to be tired. Cherundolo maybe has to make some changes in the 60th minute because the way this LAFC team was pressuring Columbus, there's no way they could keep up. And the floodgates opened up before we even, got to halftime. They got a goal because of a handball by Chiqui Palacios, which a lot of LAFC fans don't think it's too just. But in my opinion, I think it's a clear handball. Unfortunate that it's in the final, but it was a handball. And then a beautiful pass from Amundsen on a beautiful team goal so that Yeboah can just slaughter right past the goalie. Again, that's a goal you don't expect from a center back in the MLS a pass that a center back in MLS makes, right? You don't really expect that. So seeing that in person, you're just like, wow, like insane amount of talent in that Columbus Crew side. And a lot of fans or a lot of people that don't really watch MLS were telling me, hey, how was the game? And to be honest, Columbus played more like a European team and they won. They were doing quick 1-2 passes. They weren't holding the ball too long. It wasn't a selfish game. It was a game where every single person on that pitch was involved. Maybe they didn't have the best players or the better players on the pitch, but they definitely were the better team.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. They found a way to press and attack and find a weak spot from LAFC in the back, and it took LAFC 60, 70 minutes to kind of figure out a way to slow them down a little bit uh,
Right.
to get back into the game. But it was a really dominant performance by the Crew. I mentioned this on Twitter, but to me, it was reminiscent to the 2020 MLS Cup when they beat Seattle Sounders. They dominated in the first half. They essentially closed the game in the first half, and then just Seattle didn't have a reaction in the second half. So it felt that way. Obviously, that was at the old Crew Stadium. So, what was the atmosphere like in this the new lower.com field in Columbus?
Yeah, honestly, you see the smile on my face. I was so shocked. Like, you don't understand how, like, they had the biggest audience or the attendance they've ever had. So it was about 20,000 and maybe a half. But that place was rocking. I really couldn't. You think of the average soccer fan out here in the West Coast, right? Either they have some Latino background or they have some European background. Usually because the Americans love playing baseball out here and football once they get older. I mean, everybody usually plays soccer out here when they're younger, but then it goes to a baseball or a basketball or a football. But seeing all those Columbus fans, in the Nordecke and everybody at lower.com just screaming at the top of their lungs, understanding the project that Nancy has in front of them, understanding the players they have in front of them, and understanding that they have a superstar in front of them in Darlington Nagbe, it was a little shocking to see. I've seen games in the West Coast. I've gone to LA, I've gone to Seattle, but I've yet to go to the Midwest and check out a game. So this was my first experience, and it was loud. I mean, the LAFC crowd, the 3252, was loud as well, but they were dwarfed at times by everybody else in lower.com. So great atmosphere, great stadium, everything in there. Honestly, I would give the stadium maybe a 9 out of 10. And the only thing that could get better about it is a little closer to the downtown area, but it's still pretty close. It has a big pole that shows you it's the Columbus Crew area, and you can see it all across town. So no, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed also that the city was in love with their team. Growing up somewhere in the Bay Area where there's the Warriors, the Niners, the Giants, maybe the Earthquakes aren't the first team that comes to mind when you talk sports, but in Columbus, it kind of is. The Crew is number one out there or number two. But definitely was a great atmosphere for that city, and it was a great time. Lower.com is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the others from what I saw from TV, I wasn't at MLS Cup. I think my last game I did was in October. But yeah, I mean, just looking at the atmosphere that came through the broadcast, you could really feel that there was something different, something special. So I was wondering how it felt for you being there. So what are some of the other big takeaways that you take from this game that may not be something that we saw on TV? What was the feel like being there?
Yeah, one of the big takeaways is I sat there thinking, Nancy's not going to be in MLS long. That's the first thing I thought about, and I know everybody knows that. I was a little shocked too that it's the first time a African American coach or a black coach has won in 27 years of MLS soccer, which is a bit wild to me. That stat hit me like a truck. And I would say Aiden Morris. I mean, Aiden Morris was at the game, and after the game, he really was soaking in everything because I think Aiden Morris isn't going to be here for much longer. And it was a little evident after the game. He was celebrating and kind of, soaking it all in by himself on the field while it rains. So I think he's going to look for a step, outside of MLS, and it's going to come pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a photo on social media about him, like after the confetti dropped, after the trophy was given to
Yeah.
after every fan had left the game. He was all by himself in the midfield, soaking in all the experience. Because yeah, I mean, he might be the last time we see him on
Right.
on Columbus. And on the other side, speaking of someone that we may not see after this, Carlos Vela, there's the rumor that he may either go to somewhere else in MLS or that he could potentially retire. Uh, so, what have you heard about Carlos Vela and what he has meant for this LFC? Because he's the
Yeah,
only
I mean,
remaining. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, definitely LAFC's best transfer of all time. I know Gareth Bell is a good one. It's a really good one, and it's kind of wild that you could say that you signed Gareth Bell as well. But Carlos Vela has been instrumental for this team. I mean, there's no LAFC without Carlos Vela, in my opinion. Didn't really have too good of a game on his last game, unfortunately. But on the semifinal game, when it was the last game at the bank, he didn't really talk to media. I mean, he left right away. An emotional night for him. He got a standing ovation. The fans started chanting Carlos Vela, and it felt like this is his last game. In the media week that we had at MLS Cup, he kept on saying, "You know what? I'm free on Sunday. I'm free on Sunday. There's no contract. This is the money I want. They understand that money, and if they don't sign me, I'm free on Sunday." Basically, he was saying, and knowing Carlos Vela and knowing the guy he is, I think he's a player that his family comes first or his style of living comes first. So all these rumors that he's going to go somewhere outside of MLS, I don't think is true. And I actually don't even think the rumors that are putting him outside of LA is true. I would say if Carlos Vela wants to move to another MLS team that's willing to pay his price tag and the LA Galaxy are calling, he's going to probably go to the Galaxy. If not, I don't think he moves at all. I think he takes the less money and just settles for LAFC. And I think this is going to be a long drawn out phase where he's trying to bait some teams into get offering a bigger contract, and then he can show LAFC, hey, match it, or I go to Houston, I go to wherever, right? So, but knowing Carlos Vela as a person, he really likes LA. Like his family loves LA. They love him in LA. So I don't see him, going back to Chivas like some fans want, in Liga MX and things like that. So I don't know. I just think he's gonna stay in LA, and I think he's more likely to go to the Galaxy than he would go outside of MLS.
Yeah, so certainly one of the storylines, big storylines to keep an eye on for the offseason. Going back to the game, I put that way to make. I mean, LAFC has been known for dominating the ball in the midfield and keeping control of the game. And it seemed that with the way Nancy set up Columbus is, we were gonna they overloaded the flank, so essentially they were bypassing the midfield, and then Diego Palacios had to deal with Edmondson and Diego Rossi on one side, while Hans had hands full with Yaboa and I believe Matan on the other side. Um, and it seemed that it was never Steve Cherundolo was never able to figure out a way to kind of slow them down. Do you get the same impression that it's just they found a way to kind of overload the flanks and there was no way out of it for LAC?
Yeah, you know what? They were really weathering the storm. before the penalty, I thought they did a good job. Maybe there was a couple of, como se dice, la pelota de muerte, the ball of death that was coming in, and Chiellini was getting him out, and Murillo was getting him out. But it just felt like the pressure was coming, and one was going to go in. LAFC was probably okay with having one at half go in, and then maybe they, switch up some guys, put Bogusz in the midfield, find a way to get some fresh legs in the midfield, because it was just going to be, hey, Kellen Acosta, Ilie, Timothy Tillman, you guys are going to have to run all game, and we'll bring in some subs around the 70th minute if we're down 1-0, and we'll try to get this goal and get it into penalties. So I think it looked like that was the game plan by Cherundolo. And, Cherundolo is no kind of stranger to overthinking things in the big games. I mean, they lost 3 finals this year. So it's something that maybe LAFC is taking a look at. I mean, Cherundolo has done a phenomenal job with LAFC with all the things they've done, but this year was just not a good season for that team. I don't think anybody in that building was expecting Amundsen to make that pass. So another thing, maybe Ryan Hollingshead was cheating a bit on that. Maybe not in the right positioning, because, like I said, I don't think anybody expected that pass to come out of Amundsen, and especially on the non-Diego Rossi side, to come right after the penalty. So, going down 2-0 before the 45th minute, there was a chance that LAFC had in the 44th that it was so close to getting in the back of the net. And if that went in, I think the game's completely different. I think you're going into halftime 2-1 away from home. I think you're still looking at it 0-0 at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said something that I noticed too, that I saw at least 2 slight tackles from Murillo that prevented essentially a tap and goal by a Columbus player.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then I think Chiellini probably had another one. So it just goes to show how many chances and how easily Columbus was putting that back line under a lot of pressure from the get-go.
Yeah, and it was evident that the pace of the Columbus kind of attack was just way too fast. I mean, they were moving that ball insanely. Nagby never, I don't even think ever once had 3 touches on a ball. He would do 1-2 touch and then pass it, 1-2 touch and pass, and it was just then Ilie and Kellen Acosta had to shift over to press, and they just were, unfortunately, at this point in their careers, a little too slow in that aspect. And talking a little bit about West Coast teams, I don't think any West Coast team plays as well as that. So it's something that came as a shock, definitely, to the LAFC team that was used to just kind of bossing teams around, just relying on Chiellini and relying on the front line and Carlos Vela to just take the ball and take the pressure. And maybe Bouanga gets a ball from a center back where they misplay the ball, and then he gets the counterattack and he gets a goal. So that's what they kind of strived on all season. But that center back pair of Camacho and Amundsen, they played phenomenally. I mean, shoot, they're no Chiellini, but I mean, they were great MLS corner or center backs.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when LAC did get things going a little bit, I mean, Patrick Schulte also had a couple of big saves that prevented the LAC from scoring earlier and put many more of a game beforehand.
Right, exactly. And then, LAFC got a little desperate by the 70th minute. We saw Kike Oliveira, shoot a ball, just couldn't go straight into the Nordecke. So, yeah, not something that, frustration was there. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And now I want to talk a little bit more bigger picture about MLS. I mean, how have you covered MLS?
But yeah, so this is my third year covering MLS as a whole, but I was a fan for many, many years. Used to be a
uh,
season ticket holder for the Quakes, and grew up watching all the league, really.
nice. So just overall, just talk about what you saw in the playoffs. I mean, one of the questions that I have for well, the question that I'm posing to a lot of people is, what do you think of the playoff format, especially the run of essentially the conference quarterfinals with the best of 3 series? What did
Yeah,
you make of that?
I'm gonna quote Don Garbett here. He said, "We all loved it." All right. So is he talking about us? I don't know. But I suppose everybody in MLS, at the headquarters, and everybody that looks at the analytics and Apple TV, they loved it. Of course, there's more games, there's more tension. I would say there's more of an atmosphere when you can have a home game at every kind of first round team. Um, you know, I'm a little torn on it because I did like it. I mean, it's more soccer. Yeah, the season was really long, and it was horrible because it was like LAFC had 53 games or 52 games. So I'm torn because Americans love a best of series. They love baseball going best 2 out of 3. They love, NBA going best of 7. So in my opinion, maybe could be executed a bit better, but I understand the reasoning because then you can't do a home and away goals because then it's not that big of a possibly an advantage for the home team. It's not it's not getting 70 points in the regular season necessary type of thing. Um, I don't know. I think it could be done a little better. Maybe the international break not being in the middle. But it's just going to get harder with Copa America coming. League Cup still going to happen. And then in the next year, you have the Gold Cup. And then the year after that, you're going to have World Cup. So it's just, again, whoever has that job and chooses everything, bless their soul, because it's definitely it's a hard job to have. But hey, I'm more for more soccer, and it's going to grow the audience. I think as long as you have enough soccer, as long as you can get more people interested in games, shoot, if Messi was in it, we wouldn't even be talking about it's too many games because then we get to watch an extra 2 games of Messi. So it's something that it's all subjective, right? So yeah, imagine if Messi made it, right, and then it was let's just throw this out there, Philadelphia Messi, right? Then Inter Miami. I say Messi, but it's Inter Miami, right? Philadelphia gets to see an extra time of Messi in Miami, right? So if it's all subjective, I liked it. I know a lot of people didn't like it because they thought about the players and everything, and 53 games is a lot, but more soccer is more fun for the audience, more entertainment. You had more things to do, more things to watch during that week. But yes, the international break did kill a little bit of the Thunder. But after that, it became one-off games, and then the Thunder came right back. So I didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to because I mean I think it's early to have a big conclusion about it. Definitely, what you hear on social media is not positive, but I liked it in the way that it means that the first games at least there's this pressure to I have to go and defend the 0-0 so I can take a positive sport to my home game. Um, it allowed teams to play a little more freely, and that's positive. And also, some of the games were good, and obviously, the more games usually is a good thing. Um, Only 3 of the series went to the third game, so
Yeah.
that's part of the reason I don't think you can really have a real strong sentiment one way or the other. But it's definitely interesting. I think the obvious thing to me is they want to give at least the top 8 to have at least one home game in the playoffs.
Right.
But the format kind of feels like they don't really MLS doesn't really feel that anyone below the 6 seed really is a deserving team to win MLS Cup. So how can we make the playoffs but prevent them from going all the way? So that's kind of the way it feels to me. But we'll see. I mean, I like you said, like I made this prediction in September to some of the colleagues I was working with. Like, imagine if Inter Miami gets as a 8 or 9 seed, and then they go play Cincinnati in a best-of-3 series. Like, I can see Inter Miami beating Cincinnati and advancing and potentially going
Right.
deep. So I think storylines like that in the next few years will tell us a lot more about how this format really works. But I think it's still an open question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if Messi and Inter Miami made it, Cincinnati would get an extra game of seeing Messi, right? So, more clicks, more views. It's always going to help the metrics for MLS to grow. That's for sure.
For sure. And just looking forward to the next season. What are the things that I mean, it's early, but what are some of the things that you're going to be most looking forward to watch in 2024?
Yeah, look, let's start off with the Columbus Crew who just won the championship, right? How do they defend their title, and will people figure out this Nancy system? To me, it looks too good to fail, right? It looks like if they can keep that core together and maybe get a little better somewhere. I mean, with all these new kind of roster rules that are rumored to come out, not fourth DP, but at least some U22 initiative players or some young DPs to come in at least. I think I'm excited to see where Columbus goes. I'm excited if Columbus can keep their talent. I mean, they're going to probably lose Aiden Morris, and shoot, what if a transfer comes in for Nancy, right? Like, it's going to be tough to keep Nancy in Columbus, especially if a big French team comes knocking. So I just think that's going to be interesting. The development of Diego Rossi out there. I know he was a little inconsistent with his scoring before the second to last game of the playoffs, but also Cucho, this Cucho stay, right? So that's another thing too. On the other side, LAFC, how are you going to retool to be the Inter Miami of the West, right? So how are you going to attract some players? Are you still going to try to be the Galacticos of the West Coast? Are you going to go for Griezmann? And how are you going to get Griezmann there without getting Vela back? So because Vela and Griezmann are good friends. So it's something that there's a lot of question marks for the LAFC squad. Is Chiellini coming back? If Chiellini isn't coming back, is Aaron Long ready to be a full-time starter for LAFC, right? So a whole bunch of questions for the West. Seattle Sounders, how are you going to replace Nico Lodedo? A legend for your club, right? Someone who won everything for you guys. Where is Nico Lodedo going to go, right? Is he going to stay in MLS? Is there going to be a storyline? What if he goes to Portland, right? So it's something interesting. I feel like there's a whole bunch of storylines, and of course, Inter Miami. I mean, everyone wants to know Suarez. How many games does he have? Does he have 30? Can his knees do it? Is Suarez able to score 10 goals with one leg? Where's Josef Martinez going to go? Is he going to go to Los Angeles, Colorado? A lot of interesting things. I heard some rumors that maybe there's going to be a lot of moves for Inter Miami. That possibly a lot of the guys that we fell in love with the Leagues Cup might not be there next year. So it's interesting to see all the roster movement, and it's already happening because today was the first day of the roster moves. So we're going to see a whole bunch of trades happen, and let's see how teams keep up with Inter Miami. That's what I want to see. I want to see a team, sign Rakitic and Modric on the same side and become another superpower, right? I need to see that. I need to see ambition like Inter Miami because, I mean, there's only so much that Garber can do to save your club from not spending, right? So it's down to the wire. I also want to see if that leaked image of the jersey is really it, because if that's the case, let's just keep the old Inter Miami jerseys because I don't want to see that new center logo for Inter Miami. I mean, just keep the polos. The polos were in vogue. Just keep them. Like, who cares? You don't have to do a new jersey. People are still going to buy a Messi jersey. So I don't know. I actually am going to be pretty mad about if that's the new jersey. It's not even the right size. It's not even the right shade of pink, right? So I obviously think that Inter Miami jersey is so iconic for Miami and for everybody that you need to keep that jersey. Maybe get rid of the black one, change the black one last second, or add the third kit. You already sold so many jerseys, and I think the rule was at MLS, if you sold enough jerseys, you get to add a third kit. So I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe that leaked Inter Miami jersey can be the white one, and that's the third kit, right? So there has to be some changes. I know they can't change things on the fly because it's a global scale for Adidas, and I'll just be mad when that Inter Miami kit goes away because it was so iconic for this year. That's going to be a fun jersey to have if you're an MLS fan and if you're a soccer fan, because it means more than just Inter Miami of 2023. It means the whole changing of the tide for soccer in America, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And two things I want to mention. To me, Inter Miami is going to be right off the bat, despite Columbus winning the MLS Cup. I think Inter Miami is, I don't know the odds, but I think to me it will be the favorite to win the Supporters Shield next year. And the other thing, interesting story. I was buying shirts somewhere, I think June. I was buying shirts and I found there's a website I use, and they have discount on for a couple of teams. They have discount on the PSG jersey, and then they have discount on the Inter Miami, the pink jersey. And then like $45 from it's half of the actual price. I bought it less than a week later. That's when they announced Leo Messi coming to Inter Miami. I was like, oh, I already have it. I don't have I don't have his name, but at least I have the jersey.
Yeah, exactly. You can just add it to it.
And I bought it for like half price of $45 instead of having to pay like hundreds of dollars for.
Right.
Alrighty. So now I want to go into Copa America. The draw took place last week on December 7th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So we were mentioning just before we started recording that you're Uruguayan. So I assume that also by living here in the U.S., you're also endeared to the U.S. scene. So first and foremost, how do you feel about both of them being drawn in the same group and what
Yeah,
they?
honestly, it's a game I want to go to, but I hate that it's in Kansas City because getting a flight into Kansas City is like $1,000. I'd rather just go to Uruguay. No, but and to be all honest, it's an easy group. I mean, both teams should make it out. I think it's going to be a fun one where USA and Uruguay are going to play in a competitive match. It's a long time since they played. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, one of the first times this team played was for the first World Cup, where USA placed third and Uruguay won. So that was something that is a while ago. But yeah, two teams used to be powerhouses back then. But now Uruguay, in my opinion, is the favorite to win the tournament. I feel like they beat Brazil, battered Brazil, and then they beat Argentina at the Bombonera. So I think it's Uruguay's tournament to lose at this moment. And I think the USA are going to get a good test. Again, if the US don't get out of the group, Berhalter's ciao. There's no ifs, ands, or but. You need to get out of this group. You need to do something with the potential of this USA team. And if you don't, you're squandering USA's golden era, right? So I honestly didn't think Uruguay's transition to a powerhouse would happen this fast. It's kind of funny because Uruguay always had good strikers and good defenders, but never had a midfield. And now the midfield is the team that's carrying, the team that's carrying everybody else with Valverde, with Bentancur, with Arrascaeta. So beautiful midfield, Ugarte, right? So I just don't see any team besides Argentina, really giving them a problem, especially because Brazil, is missing so many players. They're missing Vinicius, Neymar, so can Rodrigo really carry this Brazil team? I don't think so, so it's going to be a fun Copa America. It's going to be a blast. I know everybody's already crazy about it. USA is already buzzing. I know I was at an MLS party for the MLS Cup, but everybody was just glued to the TVs watching the Copa America draw, seeing where Ecuador is going to play, where Brazil is going to play. So it was exciting. The drawing is actually pretty fun when it's in your country, right? You're tied to the TV, wanting to know where they're going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And yeah, to I'm a Mexican American, so I was intrigued by what the draw was going to bring for both Mexico and the United States. I think Mexico had a good draw in the sense that they get Ecuador, Venezuela, and Jamaica in the group. Um, Even though Venezuela is doing well in the qualifiers, and Ecuador was a strong team in the World Cup and has done well in the qualifiers. They got a 3-point deduction. And Jamaica is always a tough team to play. It's not so it's not an easy group, but I think when you consider the other options, it's a lot better. But I think the big winner of the draw was Argentina because they get Peru and Chile that are not in their best right now. There's gonna be an interesting rematch with Argentina and Chile at MetLife, where Argentina lost the final in 2016, and then probably Canada will be the opening game in Atlanta. The big reason that Argentina to me is the winner of the draw is because they don't have to play the Uruguays or the Brazils or the Colombias until the final. They're essentially locked on the other side of the bracket, so that's the big thing. So in that sense, you mentioned that you feel that Uruguay is the big favorite to win the Copa America.
Yeah.
It's a big one because both Uruguay and Argentina are still number 16 now. So do you think that could play against Uruguay, the fact that even if you win the group, you're going to probably have to play either Brazil or Colombia early on, and sometimes when you constantly play some of the toughest teams, at some point it's just you fall short.
Yeah, if this was Uruguay 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, it's tough, But Bielsa has his team playing on a different level. I'm not. This is the first time I could say as an Uruguay fan, I'm not scared of anybody, because you go into Brazil, you win. You go into Argentina, you win. Colombia is a good team. No disrespect to them, but they're not in Argentina at home. That's for sure. So, yeah, I truly think this is Uruguay's cup to not win, and I think it's gonna be Uruguay Argentina in the final, and it's gonna be a great game. And I'm gonna have to find a way to cover that game too, because MLS All-Star game is the day after. So I have to find a way to go. I think the final is in Miami, if I'm not mistaken, or
Yes.
Atlanta.
Yeah, finals to Miami.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to find I'm gonna book a flight already to Miami the day before I go back to Columbus for the All-Star game because it's going to be a quick one. I mean, it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a great time. But yeah, I'm already booking my flight from Miami to Columbus. That I think it's July 17th, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sorry, like for Copa America Centenario, I went to the Mexico Uruguay game in Phoenix, and then I went to the third place game, which was USA Colombia. So it was fun, and since the Messi tickets for MLS are so crazy, I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to find a way to go watch Argentina in one of the games. I'm looking at the quarterfinals because Argentina plays on 4th July. If they win the group, which is likely, they will play July
Yeah,
4th in Houston.
which is nice. Yeah.
And then the next day, the winner of Group B, which I'm hoping is Mexico, plays in Arlington. So that could be that could be an interesting trip if that happens.
Yeah, exactly. You can watch Argentina one day and Mexico the next, right? That's it. That is a good one. Yeah.
So hopefully things work out.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. And the other thing I want to talk about MLS before is Champions Cup. MLS will have 10 teams in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's coming.
Yeah.
The draw's coming this week. So what do you make of the teams that are there at the field? Um, what do you learn? What did League Cup teach us about where the MLS stands against League MX, and whether you think we will potentially see Inter Miami play? I mean, Messi with Inter Miami go and play in places like Honduras when they're on the road.
Yeah, look, I don't know if Messi's going to play in Honduras. I think that's a game that Campana is going to have to take the lead and get CONCACAF, right? So I think they're going to rest Messi on those type of games. Unfortunately, a lot of Hondurans or else like Costa Ricans maybe have to watch Messi from the stands, right? So I think they're going to take Messi pretty lightly in the first couple of rounds. I think MLS teams need to be making it out of the group stages. As I know it's tough. I know it's been not done before, but I think there's a different aura around MLS. I think there's a different cloud that has gone away from MLS teams not being able to perform in this tournament. And I think a lot of teams have played against Messi, and they're going to be like, hey, we did some good things against the best player in the world. Shoot, why can't we beat America? Why can't we beat a Tigres? So it's going to be something where, yes, maybe we're in preseason form, so you'll see teams like the Revolution fall off. You'll see teams like, shoot, the Union maybe fall off, right? So it's something to keep an eye on. But I think Columbus will be in tip-top shape. I mean, they're only going to take maybe about a month off, and then they have a preseason out here in California, and then it's boom, it's CONCACAF, right? So teams like Miami, where actually Miami is going all over the place, right? They're going now announced today, they're going to Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong, and then if they go to Honduras, I mean, geez, they're all over the place. They're going to need an A, B, and a B team, right? So interesting kind of Inter Miami preseason coming. But
Yeah,
no,
we could potentially get the Messi Ronaldo with Inter Miami and Al Nasser.
yeah, I mean, they announced it today, right? So they said
Yeah.
it was fake maybe 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago, and then today they were like, no, it's not fake. It just was premature, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna get that Al Nasser and Inter Miami friendly. And of course, Messi's going to play in that one, So it's going to be interesting to see that. But no, I think CONCACAF champions. This is the year to do it. I think they're going to open up some roster rules. I know Don Garber said at the State of the Union that this week was going to be the week where they announced some things. No fourth DP, but there's going to be some roster movements, some roster streamlined, some roster rules streamlined. That's what he said. So maybe we see, young DPs go to 5 young DPs, or you don't need to have 2 DPs and 4 young DPs. You can just have 4 young DPs and 3 DPs, right? So still a lot of things to be known. If MLS teams get a little more wiggle room, they're going to compete better. I mean, guys aren't going to be as the drop off in talent's not going to be so much. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna be really interesting because we're gonna have that weird mix because you can have 10 MLS teams, you're gonna have 6 teams from Liga MX. So just the numbers are in favor of MLS, and obviously that's because they won all 3 spots from the Leagues Cup.
Right.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how Mexican teams fare. I think the biggest takeaway that I got from Leagues Cup is that at the top they're very even, both leagues, but from the middle, the bottom, I think MLS is showing they has better teams with more talent than mid-table and lower part of the table than Liga MX. So it's definitely looking forward to continue to watch Champions Cup and see those matches. Likewise with Leagues Cup.
I would actually think Liga MX is a little more top heavy. Just I mean, what you said, right? I mean, Tigres is going to beat the Earthquakes, no problem. I
Yeah.
mean, Cruz Azul is probably going to beat a Portland Timbers. So I think the Liga MX teams at the top, yeah, they're looking pretty good compared to an MLS team, besides Inter Miami and Columbus, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But for example, I do think like even if you get the bottom dwellers like who are the bottom teams this year, like Colorado is probably
Austin,
better. Is better than teams. Some of the teams like Querétaro.
you think so?
Like at the bottom, I think so. I think that's where MLS has a little bit of an edge. Like at the
I
like
would
with the bottom dwellers.
I would take like a Toluca, right? Like they're not
Well,
always at the top.
I mean, no, I mean Toluca's a mid-table team. Like if you get, but if you get like the bottom, like Colorado Rapids against the Caxa, for example, I'm thinking
Yeah, okay.
Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
All right. The other thing I wanted to touch upon here is the 2030 World Cup. That's the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is the way it's going to be played out. For those of you that are not aware, the main tournament, or 101 games out of 104 games, are going to be played between Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. But
Yeah.
they are giving Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay one game each to open up the tournament to commemorate the 100 years of the start of the World Cup. So I want to hear your viewpoint as a Uruguayan of what it means to respect the 100-year anniversary of the World Cup and whether what does a single game, opening game in Uruguay does
Yeah.
to it.
I'm a little mixed about this one. When I was growing up and the rumors came out that 2030 was going to be a World Cup, I always told my dad, "Hey, Dad, we're going to go see this World Cup in Uruguay." I mean, we take care of your health. You know, I'm going to take care of my health. And 2030, we're going to go see the World Cup because it's going to be a beautiful time for Uruguay. Honestly, when they added Paraguay, I was like, "What is this about?" You know, Paraguay, Paraguay. Like, why? What are you doing in there? You know, no offense to Paraguay, you know, like you're a great soccer nation too, but in terms of this kind of whole aspect of the 100 years, in my opinion, it should just be in Uruguay, like by itself. Argentina makes a little more sense because it's a 20-minute boat ride across to Buenos Aires from Montevideo. Okay, maybe you have a game in Buenos Aires or some games in Buenos Aires, right? So, Paraguay, though, that was a little weird to me. So I never was happy with that. And then when we found out that we're gonna have one game in Uruguay only, one in Argentina, and then one in Paraguay, that's like a slap in the face. You know, it's like why even have them down there? So, um, personally, I'm not a fan. I'm a big believer in having a World Cup in one nation. I totally understand that it's not the best idea for stadiums and everything. You know, it's globally, it's not the best idea to build so many stadiums because look at Qatar, um, Brazil's a huge nation, and they still couldn't use all their stadiums after the World Cup. Maybe have the games in Uruguay and Argentina. In Argentina, meaning just Buenos Aires because it's right there, and maybe have more spread out games. So. I'm not a big fan of it. I understand FIFA what they're doing. They want to cram in the two bids so they can give it to Saudi Arabia faster than not. So yeah, it's happening. I guess I'm only going to cover one game of that World Cup because I'm not going to be go to Uruguay and then Spain, right? So, I think they could have done a couple more games in Uruguay. I think it's a slap, like I said, a slap in the face, and they could have at least done five.
Yeah, I agree. It's I'll expand on this a little later, but yeah, it seemed like that there was no reason to do it. Like if you want to do it on merit of infrastructure and everything, sadly, I mean, the Spain, Portugal, Morocco was a better one in that
Yeah.
sense. If you wanted to pay homage to the 100 years, then you can make that decision to go to South America. but it was weird the way they were doing this. And you were talking about single countries doing the World Cup. I agree 100%. And Spain could potentially done it on its own. But I don't know why FIFA has this tendency to kind of push for multiple joint bids. Yeah, it's weird. I think it's gonna be. I think one of the worst things that I've seen is I saw a rumor that apparently those two games in South America is gonna be played on one weekend, and then you're gonna have to wait to the next weekend for the rest of the
Mm,
tournament to start. So that will be even worse. But we'll
right.
see.
Yeah, I mean the first game in Qatar was awesome. Everybody was watching it. Ecuador versus Qatar, right? And we all thought Valencia was the next Ronaldo, right? So I don't know. The World Cup to me is sacred. I hate it when they touch a World Cup because it's boiling my blood right now while I'm sitting in this chair. Because if you add more teams to a World Cup, you make joint bids to a World Cup, man. Like I don't want to ruin my chances of working for FIFA one day, but I'm not happy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean the 2030 World Cup is gonna be an interesting one for a lot of reasons. But I think in addition to being a fan of the game and following the tournaments, I also like to following some of the bidding for some of these tournaments. And what struck me as a surprise was obviously the host was for 23 was supposed to be announced next year, next
Mm,
fall. They moved that up a year with no announcement, and then they merged these two uh, host joint bids. So essentially, it's a way of FIFA saying, okay, we're gonna take out any possible obstacle that Saudi Arabia may have with the Europe, with Africa, South America, and North America. That's supposed to be 2026, and that only leaves a handful of countries like China, India, maybe Australia to potentially submit a bid, but then they only gave countries like 4 weeks to express interest. So
mm.
essentially, they made it in a way to pretty much guarantee that Saudi Arabia was going to be the lone bid. And when it was, automatically given the 2034 hosting right. So we'll see what happens with that one. We'll get to that later on, but I just don't like the way those deals happen.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But anyway, so next I want to talk briefly about the first the Club World Cup that's happening in 2025 here in the US. We already have a handful of teams supposed to have all the ones that are going to be taking part. So it looks like FIFA is still going to have its plan to have the 7 team World Cup every year, but every 4 years they're going to have this expanded format. So for you, I mean, are you looking forward to this revamped Club World Cup? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, the only time people really bring up the Club World Cup was when Corinthians almost beat Chelsea, right? I mean,
Actually,
I know.
they did.
No, they did. Yeah, they did. Right. So that's the one I always hear about because I lived with a lot of Peruvians. So that was the one. Paulo Guerrero is un crack. Like he took Corinthians and made sure that they beat Chelsea. Right. So yeah, I mean it's a nice story. It's some fun, and who knows, right? I mean, I would like to see this Europe elitist kind of fall or Europe elitist kind of mentality go away a bit. Who knows? Maybe a team in Saudi Arabia, MLS, Liga MX, Argentina, Brazil can take down these European giants, and I'm excited for it. It's going to be a good time, and it's going to be here in the U.S. So another motivation to have soccer grow here.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea. It's gonna give more teams an opportunity to face tough competition. So from although right now the thing with South America is that only Brazilian clubs have won Copa Libertadores and therefore are the only ones that have qualified. Uh, we'll see what the ranking from CONMEBOL is and who ends up getting those. Like, I think it's like two, two or three spots from the ranking. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see potentially having like the Manchester City and the Real Madrid is playing against potentially Flamengo or maybe Boca
Right,
or Al Nasser. Uh,
right, right,
so,
right.
Saudi Arabia is now becoming a factor in the landscape of soccer. So it's gonna be interesting to see that play out on the field and how everyone stacks up against each other.
Yeah, hey, it's a global game. I mean, why not do another thing to make it more connective?
Yeah. The one thing I will say, and I mentioned this on a previous episode that we had here that was Spanish, was the only thing I wish that the organizers do is to spread out a little bit the tournament. And what I mean by that is, uh, it's a perfect opportunity, I think, to combine some of the bigger NFL stadiums with some of the best MLS stadiums that you have. So that way you can go to places like Ohio, like Cincinnati or Columbus that
Right.
are not part of Copa America, are not part of the World Cup. And that this way you can spread out the wealth a little bit into some of the other markets that the US has and they have more exposure around the country.
Right. No, that's a good
So
idea. That's a good point.
hopefully we'll see that. And now let's go to 2026 and talk about the 2026 World Cup. First, I want to know your opinion on the 48 team format now. And then from there, we'll go into how hopeful are you for both the US and in your case, Uruguay for that tournament?
Yeah, hey, like 48 teams, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about the three countries. I think, uh, a Mexico only, World Cup would have been a beautiful thing. A North America thing would have been a beautiful thing. And Canada World Cup would have been a beautiful thing. So I think I'm more mad about the joint World Cups. I think I'd rather just have it in one country. But if you want to expand it to 48 teams, it unfortunately takes away from some of the countries that can't host it alone. So um, 48 teams is fine for the United States. Like you said, you can have a Columbus or a Cincinnati game. You don't have to have it in Miami every weekend. So I don't mind it so much, but I do mind the joint bids. I think if we wanted to add more teams, no problem. That's fine. It's still gonna be hard to qualify into the World Cup. But we're gonna see a little more underdogs, and we're gonna see maybe some teams like France and Brazil get a little bit more of a practice run before they get important games. So no, I'm not too mad about it. We're still going to get more games in the United States, and it's going to be more soccer. So I don't mind it too much.
Yeah, I will assemble that it's I think 32 was the perfect format. 48 I understand because I mean there's a lot of good teams in especially places like Africa that don't qualify because the big teams are keeping them from qualifying. Um, and it'll give it an interesting flavor to the World Cup. But I agree in the sense that I mean FIFA's argument to having the World Cup with 3 teams is, oh, we want to expand the game and we're gonna give more teams the chance to play the World Cup. You understand, but by the same doing the same move, you're actually curtailing and limiting the number of countries that can potentially host a World Cup. Because
Right,
they're not relaxing some of the like they're asking for stadiums with capacity of over 40,000 people. I mean, if you at least relax it to
right,
maybe if for the group stage you can have 30,000 or 25,000, maybe that way makes it a little easier. But if they can have the same guidelines and same uh, rules, it's gonna be tough. So that were a place that maybe a dozen nations can hold the World Cup, but that's about it.
right. No, I agree with that. Yeah, you're not going to get the Chiles, the Italies, the
The
Colombia,
wise,
USA's. Yeah, they're not going to not make the World Cup anywhere. So I think you're going to get all those teams in there, right? So I think you're totally fine with that. Yeah, I think a team like Italy, that wouldn't qualify, maybe is going to qualify now. A team like Chile, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be involved. I think international football people play at a different level. So I think the quality is still going to be good. I don't think it's going to be bad.
yeah. My personal concern will be probably some of the new CONCACAF teams and some of the new Asian teams. But I think like Africa will have, even though they have 9, they're gonna have good teams and they're gonna give trouble to pretty much anyone.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. And how do you feel about the where the US and Uruguay stand now and their chances moving forward for that tournament?
Same feeling about Copa America. Uruguay should win Copa America. Uruguay should be a top 4 team in the World Cup. USA is a little different. If USA doesn't do well in Copa America, it's time to get rid of Berhalter, and I don't think there's anybody in the United States that want to keep Berhalter. So I think if Copa America doesn't go well for USA, the writing's on the wall. It's time to get rid of him. And it's time to get a competent coach for the World Cup and someone that can come near quick. Even a Wilfred Nancy at this moment might be a little better, right? We need a style of play. We need something that makes us USA. We need to win confidently. And if we're losing, 4-1, but the next game we're winning 3-0, right? Who knows, right? Maybe being aggressive like a Wilfred Nancy, where you're going for those crazy passes and you're going to risk it, but you have a style of play, you have a way you want to play, and you're confident because you go into every match knowing the style of play you're going to play and knowing that if you do this, you could win and you will win. I think that's more important for the United States than edging out these 1-0 victories over Panama. So it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way about the US. I think they're at an interesting point of inflection that you need to figure out how you're gonna define your playing style moving forward. Because it will be 2 years from the World Cup, and you already need to start essentially ironing out some of the details. Since you're not gonna be playing qualifiers, uh, this is the time to essentially take a path to what you're gonna be like in 2026. And for Mexico, I'm a little concerned because he hasn't been playing well for a while. Some of the players are on the fringe of the national team. When they get
Yeah,
the chance, they don't really perform. And there's players that have been there for a while that are not doing as well anymore, but no one's coming to take their place. And so it's a
right.
little alarming, but hopefully we'll see a little more of a competition in the competition within the Mexican team uh, the next few years ahead of the tournament.
Yeah, Mexico has to find themselves, that's for sure. They have to find themselves, especially in this Copa America too.
Yeah. And overall, I think big picture, I think the two finalists from the last one, Argentina and France, are probably going to start as the big favorites for
Yeah, I
that
agree.
tournament. But I think it's going to be a big tournament in for everyone else that but Argentina and France. There's a lot of stake, and let me explain. So Brazil, since they won it in 2002, they are on the knockout stage. They're 0-6 against European teams. So they lost every single European team they played in the knockout stages. They were world champions 2002. So it'll be interesting to see if they can turn that around
Hmm.
in 2026. Uh, for Germany, is two straight World Cups without getting past the group stage.
Yeah.
And you find a way to get back to where the German national team belong. Can they really not only get back to the World Cup, but can they be a factor in it? Spain hasn't won a knockout stage game since they won the World Cup in 2010. Uh, and England is always the intriguing storyline with how far such a talented team can go. Can they actually compete with some of these bigger teams? So it's gonna be there's gonna be a storyline to follow, and in that sense, I think it's gonna be a very very intriguing and very interesting World Cup to watch.
Yeah, that Spain one is a little crazy. That is shocking.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised with Brazil because actually, uh, Costa Rica has eliminated more European teams in the knockout stage since 2002 than Brazil has.
Wow, that is crazy. That is
Because
wild.
Costa Rica beat Greece in 2014 in penalties, but Brazil has lost to every European team they played in the knockout stage since 2002.
Yeesh, yeah, yeah, that is shocking.
For sure. Alrighty, so that's pretty much all I have for you, Fabian. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on the podcast, and hopefully we'll reconnect sometime soon and do this either in English or in Spanish. We'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah, no, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I had a blast. Thank you again. Yeah, anytime you want to talk MLS or soccer, I'm there. I appreciate it. Thank you. And you
And
can find. Mhm.
just one more thing, I was going to go into that. Where can people find your reporting and your writing when it comes to MLS, and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah. It's my name, Fabian Renkel, on Twitter or on Instagram. It's at I am Fabian Renkel. So if you look up my name, you'll find me. But yeah, I do a report on all of MLS, and then I try to do some Uruguay in English for some Uruguay fans that aren't Uruguay. So yeah, I do a whole bunch of things on my Twitter. So check it out for some work, for some soccer work.
All right. Thank you so much again. Appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe and see you next time.